You are in a gas station bathroom 2 miles from the bust. The badge is cold against your chest. The needle is still in your arm. The plunger isn't all the way down yet. You are a 12-year DEA veteran, and you are addicted to the exact same fentanyl you are paid to take off the streets. Your breath fogs the mirror. The face looking back at you is still your face technically. Same jaw, same eyes. But the eyes are doing that thing now. They don't focus on anything except the pinprick of light at the end of your own collapse. Your hands used to be steady enough to field strip a Sig Sauer in the dark. Now they shake unless you've dosed. You push the plunger. The warmth slides up your spine. You stop being a federal agent for about 4 hours. The problem is you'll be a federal agent again after that. The next bust is in 6 hours. The SAC wants to meet you before the briefing. You haven't slept in 2 days. The man you're about to arrest is someone you've done fentanyl with. You did it in a warehouse while a generator hummed and a cartel boss called you brother. But to understand how you ended up here, you have to go back. Not to the academy. Not to the oath you took in a room full of flags and hope. You have to go back to a single sentence. A sentence spoken in a windowless office 14 months ago. And to everything you'd already lost before you walked in. You used to be someone else. You used to have a wife named Elena. She packed your lunch. You had a daughter named Sophia who drew pictures of you in crayon as a superhero. You used to have a partner named Danny. He went through Quantico with you. He knew your coffee order. He knew your tells. He knew the exact way you clenched your jaw when a case went sideways. Danny died 3 years ago on an operation you planned. You were the lead. You called the breach. You watched him take 2 rounds to the throat from a shooter you failed to flag. The IA investigation cleared you. Everyone said it wasn't your fault. But fault isn't a legal finding. Fault is a 3 a.m. voice that never stops talking. Elena left 18 months later. Not because she stopped loving you, because you stopped being there even when you were in the room. She took Sophia to Phoenix. You stayed in Virginia. You stayed in the same apartment. You kept the same empty fridge. You kept the same framed photo on the nightstand that you can't bring yourself to put away. By the time the SAC called you into his office, you were already hollow. Hollow is useful. Hollow is exactly what the DEA was looking for. Level 1, the assignment. Your SAC is a man named Keller, 25 years on the job. A face like a collapsed freeway. He has a file and a photograph. He has the kind of expression that says he is about to ask you to do something that will cost you more than your life. He doesn't ease into it. He says the Sinaloa cartel has a new distributor. They are moving fentanyl through Phoenix at a volume nobody's seen in a decade. His supply chain is airtight. The only way inside is through the money. You speak Spanish like you were born in Culiacan. You have no family nearby. You have no attachments that would complicate a deep cover assignment. You're the perfect asset. Then he pauses. He looks at you differently, almost carefully. He asks if you're in the right headspace for a long-term undercover. You say yes. You say it fast. It is the way you learned to say yes after Danny died. Saying yes meant you were still functional. You were still on the team. You were still someone who mattered. Keller nods. He doesn't push. You think it's because he trusts you. It isn't. It's because he's already recording the answer in a separate file you don't know exists. You become Carlos Reyes. You are a money launderer with a gambling problem and a clean paper trail. Nobody asks questions. For 6 months, you're brilliant. You move their cash through shell companies. You earn their trust. You memorize their hierarchy like a cartographer of violence. You have weekly debriefs with your handler. His name is Webb. He has been with the division for 9 years and still believes in the mission. He looks at your intel reports like they're Christmas presents. The task force builds 40 indictments from your work. You're the best undercover the division has. Webb tells you that during one debrief in a parking garage. He says it with admiration, maybe even affection. Then he asks how you're sleeping. You say fine. He asks if you're eating. You say fine. He looks at you a beat too long. He acts like he wants to say something else but doesn't. A normal agent would wonder why his handler is asking questions that sound like a wellness check. You don't wonder. You're too focused on the mission. That's what you tell yourself. Then the day comes. The cartel's local boss is a man named Ortega. He runs Phoenix like a feudal lord. He invites you to his private ranch. This is the moment. The relationship moves from business to brotherhood. He pours tequila. He calls you familia. Then he slides a bag of powder across the table. It is fentanyl, almost pure. It is the same product that's been killing 300 Americans a day. He says no one in his circle does business sober. It's a test. It's always a test. You know that. Your training screams at you. But your training also says maintain cover at all costs. Somewhere beneath that, a quieter voice speaks up. It says you've been exhausted for 3 years. You are hollowed out by guilt and loneliness. You are hollowed out by the sound of Danny's name in your head at night. The voice says maybe this will quiet it. Just once. Ugh. You do a line. The burn hits your sinuses like a chemical blade. It is sharp and bitter and wrong. Then comes the drip. It slides down the back of your throat. It tastes like burnt plastic and regret. You brace for something terrible. Instead, something else happens. Warmth. Not the hot flush of a fever. It is a golden ambient heat. It unknots every muscle in your body in sequence. Your shoulders, your jaw, the permanent clench in your stomach you'd forgotten was even there. For the first time in 3 years, Danny's voice goes quiet. The guilt doesn't disappear, but it steps back. It acts like a stranger who finally stopped knocking on your door. You feel calm. You feel capable. You feel like the person you were before Danny died. Before Elena left. Before the job chewed you into something hard and brittle and alone. The high lasts 4 hours. When it fades, the crash is not gradual. It is absolute. The warmth drains out of you. What fills the vacuum is a cold so deep it feels like your bones are freezing from the inside. The guilt comes back louder than before. The emptiness is bigger. The only thing that fixes it is another line. You don't take one. Not that night. You tell yourself it was just operational necessity. You tell yourself it's over. You drive home at 3 a.m. Your hands are steady. Your mind is already calculating when you'll see Ortega again. Level 2. The slide. 3 days later, you're still thinking about it. Not the high. The absence of it. The quiet. The way your brain stops screaming for a few blessed hours. Webb notices you're distracted during the next debrief. He asks if you're okay. You say you're just tired. He writes something on a notepad. You don't ask what. You should have. Ortega offers again a week later. This time, you don't even pretend to hesitate. You tell yourself it's stress management. You tell yourself you're maintaining cover. Then the rationalizations become finer. They become more intricate. It is the kind of legalistic self-deception that a trained investigator is uniquely qualified to construct. You start taking small samples from evidence busts. Just residue. Just enough to keep you level. Not to get high. To get normal. That's the line you draw. Addiction is other people. It is junkies in alleyways who started using because they were weak. You're a professional. A federal agent. A man who stared down cartel gunmen without flinching. You can control this. The lie has structure. The lie has a career history. Then one night you're in a warehouse inspecting a shipment for Ortega. You are taking photos and documenting serial numbers. Your job is to be invisible. Instead, you find yourself alone with a kilo brick and a razor blade. Your hands aren't shaking yet, but they will be soon. You cut a line, then another. Then you're on the concrete floor with your back against a pallet. You realize you've been sitting there for an hour. The brick is 12 grams lighter. You've invented a discrepancy in your head before you even recognize it as theft. The line between cop and criminal isn't crossed in a single moment. It's crossed slowly. By the time you notice you're already on the other side, you are looking back at a version of yourself you can barely remember. His name wasn't Carlos Reyes. His name was yours. Level 3. The handler notices. Webb has been watching you for months. Now he's watching differently. He sees the weight loss. He sees the tremor in your hands that you hide by folding your arms. He sees the way you volunteer for every evidence inspection. Every late-night inventory that puts you alone with the drugs. He pulls you aside in the parking garage after a briefing. He doesn't speak as a handler. He speaks as a guy who's known you for 8 years. A guy who came to Danny's funeral and stood in the back because he didn't know what to say. He asks if everything's okay at home. You lie straight to your face. You say it's the stress of the role, the constant performance, the isolation. He wants to believe you. You can see it in his eyes. He has that desperate hope. He hopes the agent he mentored isn't sliding into something he can't pull him out of. He tells you to take a few days. Recharge. You nod. You don't recharge. You go home to your apartment. It feels like a stranger's house. Elena took the furniture. She took the photographs. She took the sound of a child laughing in the next room. You finish the rest of the fentanyl you stole. The high is different now. It's not a reward. It's a rescue. It's the only thing that makes you feel like a human being instead of a ghost wearing a badge. Then your phone rings. Ortega. His voice is calm. That is how you know something has gone terribly wrong. He says a rival faction is moving into his territory. He needs you to prove yourself, not with money, with violence. He wants you to ride with his enforcement team tonight. If you refuse, you're a cop. If you go, you're an accessory to murder. You go. You're in the back of an SUV. You have a pistol in your waistband. You have a head full of fentanyl. The shooting starts. Automatic fire rips through a rival stash house. Men scream. The smell of cordite and blood and burning rubber fills the air. You don't even flinch. A rival enforcer drops 15 feet from you. You don't know if you fired a round or not. You're too high to remember. The fentanyl has separated your body from your conscience. Your body moves with cold mechanical precision. Your soul watches from somewhere above, horrified and silent. When it's over, Ortega embraces you like a son. He says you're truly familiar now. You feel a warmth that isn't the drugs. You feel something worse. You feel belonging. Level 4. The revelation. The twist comes on a Thursday. You are in a briefing room at DEA headquarters. You were called in under the pretext of a task force update. Keller is there. Webb is there. A woman from the Office of Professional Responsibility is there. You don't recognize her. Your stomach drops. This is it. The arrest. The indictment. The perp walk you've been dreading for months. But nobody reads you your rights. Instead, the OPR woman slides a folder across the table. Inside are photographs of you. Doing lines with Ortega. Stealing evidence. Riding with cartel gunmen during a firefight that left 3 people dead. You've been documented for 3 months. Then she says something that rewires everything. They knew. Keller knew. Webb knew. The assignment wasn't just to infiltrate the cartel. It was expanded 6 months in. It fell under a classified protocol. They wanted to study how a high-performing agent develops substance dependence under deep cover. The DEA is hemorrhaging agents to fentanyl. They're losing them to overdose. They are losing them to corruption. They are losing them to the same pipeline you're trapped in. The agency needed data, behavioral data, psychological data. They wanted to map the trajectory from first use to full addiction in real time. They did this by observing an agent who had no family, an agent with no attachments. The OPR woman pauses. She speaks almost delicately. She mentions a known vulnerability after your partner's death and your divorce. They didn't just select you. They selected you specifically. The legal term is operational study, she says. She says it as if that makes it clinical. Your handler Webb speaks for the first time. His voice is different. It is flatter, more remote. He says every debrief was part of the data collection, every wellness check, every casual question about your sleep and your appetite and your mood. Your psychological deterioration was being documented. It was graphed and correlated against operational milestones. You're not a cop who fell. You're a case study. The cartel doesn't know you're a cop. The DEA knows you're an addict. Both sides are using you. You are not a double agent. You are a triple victim. Your outrage erupts. You scream at Keller. You scream at Webb. You scream at the OPR woman whose name you still don't know. You threaten to expose everything. The operation. The study. The fact that the DEA knowingly let an agent become an addict for research. The OPR woman is calm. She says if you go public, you will be prosecuted. They will charge you with evidence theft, drug possession, and accessory to murder. They have enough to bury you for 40 years. The photographs in the file are also evidence. But there is an alternative. You can continue the mission. Keep using. Keep reporting. Keep being the most valuable psychological data point the DEA has ever generated. They will even supply you with clean needles. A box sits on the table. Hypodermics. Sterile. Government issue. The paperwork lists them as operational medical supplies. You take the box because there is no choice. There has never been a choice. You walk out of headquarters. Your hands are steadier than they've been in months. Now you know the truth. Your addiction isn't a failure. It isn't a weakness. It is a deliverable. It is your job. You have been paid to become a junkie. There is only one difference between you and the bodies in the alley. Your overdose won't be reported as a tragedy. It will be reported as a data point. Appendix C. Subject deterioration curve at day 220. Level 5. The end. Stories like this don't. But the end is stranger than you imagine. You continue working the cartel. Now you have the full knowledge that both sides are feeding you rope. You are incredibly deep. The takedown finally comes. It is a multi-agency raid that nets 23 cartel members, including Ortega. You are arrested alongside them. Webb does not intervene. It is part of the theater. It is part of the protocol. It is part of maintaining the fiction that you were ever anything other than a lab rat in a badge. You spend 6 months in federal detention. You go through withdrawal in a cell with a toilet without a seat. The bunk is bolted to the wall. The detox is biblical. Shaking, sweating, vomiting. The paranoia is acute. You are convinced the guards are Ortega's men sent to kill you. Your body purges the fentanyl. Your mind cannot purge the memories. Danny's name comes back louder than ever. Sophia's face comes back. The version of yourself that existed before the first line comes back. He looks at you with an expression you cannot bear. By the time you're released, you are technically clean. Physically, you are released quietly and administratively. The paperwork expunges your arrest and reinstates your employment. But the cravings don't stop. They just become a low hum. They are like a fluorescent light that never turns off. The DEA gives you a medal for extraordinary service in a classified operation. They give you a desk job in the training division. They give you a therapist who has read the very case study you are the subject of. Your file is redacted and archived. The cartel members you betrayed rot in Supermax. You file paperwork and attend mandatory counseling. But the experiment isn't over. 3 years later, you are still at that desk. The therapist has discharged you. Elena still lives in Phoenix with Sophia. Sophia is 14 now. You see her photos sometimes on social media through a mutual friend. You don't have a profile of your own. She looks happy in a way that does not include you. Webb retired. Keller was promoted. Everyone who built the cage you lived in moved on to better things. Then last month, a new agent sat down in your office. Young, eager, fresh out of Quantico. He has a wife and a toddler. He has the same bright-eyed belief you once had. Before Danny died, before the first line, before the cold calculus of the agency reduced you to a graph, he has been selected for a long-term deep cover assignment, infiltrating a fentanyl pipeline. His SAC described it as the opportunity of a lifetime. He looks at you with the same reverence you once had for veterans who seemed bulletproof. He asks you for advice. What's the hardest part? What do you wish someone had told you? You open your mouth. You could warn him. You could tell him the truth. You could tell him he is not an agent. He is a subject. The department has already profiled his vulnerabilities. Somewhere in a classified server, a folder already exists with his name on it. You could tell him the hardest part isn't the cartel. It is the moment the agency stops protecting you and starts observing you. But you don't. You say something generic about staying focused. You tell him to maintain cover and remember why he took the oath. He nods. He thanks you. He leaves. The silence settles after his footsteps fade. In that silence, you understand fully and finally what you have become. You are not just an addict. You are a recruiter. The study needs new subjects. The cycle requires fresh data. And you, the hollowed-out man at the desk, are now the gateway. You go home that night to the same empty apartment. You don't use. You haven't used in 3 years. But you keep the clean needles in a drawer. Government issue. They are still in the box they gave you at headquarters. Sometimes you take one out and hold it. The plastic is cold. The plunger slides smooth. The needle is so fine it barely hurts when you press it against your fingertip. You never inject. You just hold it. You remember the warmth, the quiet, the way the guilt finally stops screaming. You wonder in the deepest hour of the night. You wonder if that feeling was ever a weakness, or whether it was the only honest thing the job ever gave you. Then you put the needle back. You close the drawer. You set your alarm for 6 a.m. There is a briefing tomorrow, a new task force, a new threat. You are still on paper one of the good guys. The reflection in the mirror is still your face, but the eyes belong to a stranger. A stranger who got the job done. The job was everything except worth the cost.